Good afternoon and welcome back to GSC Executive Podcast with your host, Caitlin Tye. Today, we are excited to have on Sara Parkinson, who is Planning and Enabling Manager at Homes England and Director at Eden Planning and Development Limited. Hello, how are you today?
I'm good.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast. It's quite a muggy day today in Manchester, but at least it's warm, I guess. Just about to rain as well. But yeah, lovely to have you on. So to kind of kickstart the podcast, could you give me a brief elevator speech about how you've achieved the position that you're in today?
It's probably been a bit of a squiggly route, really. I mean, I'm a planner and always have been a planner. But most recently, before setting up Viva Planning, I was a board director at Vistry Partnerships in their London division for 5 years. So I started out as a graduate. I studied in Ireland and moved to London when I was in my early 20s. And I worked for a very small planning consultancy, part of an architectural firm, for a year or two. And then I moved on to work for quite a few of the mainstream consultancies. So I spent a few years at Lichfields, and then I worked for some of the multidisciplinaries, which I found was really interesting, because that gave me a well-rounded view of the market, how land is bought and sold, the different elements of the built environment that I just really didn't get in planning consultancy. And then I suppose was the turning point in my career was around about 2015. I'd come back from maternity leave and I just wasn't happy in my consultancy role, and an opportunity came up in an organisation which is now called Business London, which used to be London First. And this was an advocacy role, working with developers, consultants, energy providers, basically you name it, any kind of company would participate in London First to lobby for London to be the best place that it could possibly be. So I led on planning and development policy. So going from an associate director, dealing with the planning applications for large housing developers, to then on my second or third week in, managing meetings of, I think it was one particular experience of managing a meeting of some of the big landed estates in London. They were fighting each other. Some of the chief executives were having an argument, sat at a table, and I found myself in the middle of it. Mediating. So to be thrust from kind of lower middle management into a position where you are dealing with chief executives and, senior regeneration people, people in the mayor's office, doors were opening. I'd call people and they'd answer, because I wasn't from a consultancy. I wasn't selling something. I was working on the basis of an organisation that had built these relationships. So I found myself thrust into this new world of networking, built a vast network. And then after 3 years at London First, due to moving geographically, moving home, I looked for another job and landed a role at Vistry, which was at the time Galford Try, which was a construction company. And within a year, I'd been promoted to a board position. I was made a director soon after that, and I had 5 amazing years at Vistry. It was a really good way of learning even more about the built environment. So I learned a lot about construction, about finance, about bank finance, about market cycles, just really a lot about the residential industry. And also it was quite good. It was quite good to be working on the client side for a change.
So is planning something that you always know that you wanted to go into it then, or?
No, I actually studied a zoology degree. I started out wanting to do computer science at university, and then realised I was hopeless at programming. But it was a general science degree, so I ended up majoring in zoology. But then my vanity took the better of me. I didn't want to spend I was studying insects, water-based insects, and I spent quite a lot of time in waders, thigh-high waders in rivers with nets, and I just thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So my uncle was one of the first planners in Ireland, so it's a bit of a family trade. So he, in the 1960s, was sent to the United States to study planning and brought it back to Ireland, and effectively was one of the forefathers of Irish planning. So yes, a bit of a family trait. So I knew I wanted to do something. And then, just I haven't looked back since. I love planning. I'm a planning geek.
Well, it's in your blood, so you haven't got no excuse.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your biggest achievement to date?
My biggest achievement to date is probably getting myself to a position of influence. And not for myself, but because I can use my position to encourage and help other people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really passionate about advocating for women, but advocating for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think I help people to find what makes them good.
Yeah.
And to encourage them to pursue, new job opportunities or different avenues, or to pursue their passions.
Yeah.
So that has been really rewarding for me in my position of influence at both board director level at Vistry, and also whilst at London First, has been able to help people to find opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that's probably my biggest achievement, is helping people and inspiring people. I've recently set up a network. It's called Accession.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping to take that to the next level by bringing together all of those senior contacts in the industry I have to try and start a conversation about how we can be helping those at the early stages of their career, or even on the kind of the diversity agenda. People can only move into the development industry if they see people who look like them or come from the same backgrounds. And it's still very much white and middle class.
Yeah.
I appreciate I'm saying that from a white and middle class position. But I think we need to encourage that diversity,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to widen the conversation. And I think if we can do that from a position of seniority and influence,
Mm-hmm.
Then we can get more people into the industry. So I think that's really, my greatest achievement is getting to this point and realizing I can help people.
Exactly. And the fact that you are taking those actions in order to be able to do that as well is it's absolutely brilliant. So obviously, kind of on the flip side to your biggest achievement, what would you say is the biggest challenge you face, and kind of how have you overcome that?
I think everybody's probably got challenges in their career. I think navigating a return to work from maternity leave is quite hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think some companies try and be supportive, but nobody can prepare you for how different your life looks when you come back. You no longer have the luxury of staying a bit later or going to the drinks, especially when you've got a baby.
Mm-hmm.
You can negotiate that if you've got a partner. But really you're tired and you're working in a different way. You probably have been up for feeds in the night, or have a waking baby, and you're exhausted. Those first early years are exhausting. So navigating a return to work after having a baby was quite hard and challenging. Also, sometimes encountering colleagues at the early stages of my career that were very traditionally, you're too young to speak, you haven't got an opinion.
Yeah.
And I suppose that has shaped me to be a person who's always welcoming of opinions. Yes, everybody has an opportunity to say something. Everybody should have a valuable opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to listen to everybody.
Yeah, because everyone has as you say, a different point of view, and they might pick up on things which you haven't even noticed yourself. So I always think it's always good to hear someone else's opinion, because you might think you have the best idea going, and then they've come up with something else, or you can collaborate your two ideas together to make something even better. So I think definitely working as a team and listening, and as going back to kind of helping people to be the best, and then as a company as a whole, or as a partnership as a whole, that obviously strengthens that further. And so kind of obviously we've touched a bit on diversity and inclusion. How would you feel how do you feel about the journey of D&I? Where does it sit at the current industry state at the moment?
I think there's a lot of focus on ESG.
Mm-hmm.
I think that development sector has miles to go, both in terms of its recruitment and its practices. If you look at some of the big organizations and boards, they will always have a woman on the board who works in HR.
Oh yeah.
Which is positive to have a woman on the board, but it seems to always be the HR.
Yeah.
HR or legal. And I think
sometimes marketing.
Oh yeah. And I think we need to improve that. I think housing associations do pretty well in the development industry on D&I, but I think private sector still has a long way to go. And I think people are trying to make change, but I think it starts with grassroots. It's particularly at senior level. There is not a lot of diversity at senior levels in the industry. And I think we need to work harder to try and improve it. People coming through the ranks and getting, we need to have more representation.
Yeah.
In the industry from across the board, from all different walks of life and backgrounds.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, it does start kind of at the root. And then if they are getting the right training, the right support, kind of getting the right pathway, then hopefully it won't just be, as you say, the HR director who's a female, or kind of the marketing director and things like that. So it obviously it is a process with anything, and hopefully it does seem to be going in the right direction. So hopefully it continues. Yeah.
It's going to take, I think it's still got a long way to go, and it's going to take time. It has moved on in leaps and bounds in the last 20 years, but I think there's more to be done. I don't have the silver bullet, unfortunately.
So how do you feel that diversity and inclusion, is there kind of anything you would say that it could be improved, or is there kind of an action which could help speed up the process? Or
it's probably a contentious one, because I know some people would disagree with it. It's positive recruitment policies where you have to shortlist. You've got targets to shortlist, at least to get people on a shortlist. So you're looking at a wide variety.
Yeah.
Obviously, they will say, well, you're recruiting the best person for the role.
Yeah.
Not recruiting somebody to tick a box.
Yeah.
But at least if you get to that point where you've got, you've got a diverse panel of people to choose from.
Yeah.
You are looking at, you have a wider scope of choice.
Yeah.
Also, there's a lot, I think maybe training on hidden bias. I find that fascinating. I mean, I haven't done it myself. I'm sure I probably haven't biased towards women, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But unconsciously, because I always want to see women succeed. It is quite hard in the sector. But I think maybe unconscious bias training would help a lot of firms, or just generally more training and more awareness.
Yeah.
Or encouraging, I think things like some of the big companies have great apprenticeship programs where they take kids through T levels, or they take kids they start engaging at school level rather than at graduate level, because kids, once they get to that level, once they graduate school, they don't know what to do. But if you get them when they're still at school, they can choose their A levels or T levels or GCSEs to get to the right place. But I think some of the housing associations have great apprenticeship schemes. Some of the developers and contractors have great apprentice schemes. And I think widening that will be great for diversity and inclusion.
I think it's, as you say, it's definitely all about kind of the education side. And as you say, kind of about the unbiased, how you may lean towards, without even knowing, kind of being biased towards females, but just because you know how hard it is from your own experiences. So I think a lot of people, even though they may say, oh yes, well, I'm very for D&I, there could be some things which they're unknown, that not that they're not, that they aren't, sorry, but that they could be doing more themselves, but obviously without the education that they're not to know. So could you give any advice for any diverse candidates considering entering the industry?
One of my good friends in the property industry sent me a link to a YouTube video. I think it was a TED Talk where it was about confidence in applying for jobs. And it was, I don't know where this source comes from, but it says that a man will apply for a job if they meet 30% of the criteria, whereas a woman will only apply for a job if they meet 90% of the criteria and they have the confidence to do so. And I would always encourage people to think more like, I can do this. Well, don't limit yourself.
Yes.
And apply for a job as if you had the capacity, you believe in yourself. Even if you only tick 3 of the criteria, just go for it and be bold and brave. Also, I would say LinkedIn is a great source. I've had lots of people reach out to me and ask me for chats for advice. Also build up your network if you can attend things that are quite often free or online. Build up your network and get to know people.
I think a lot of it is, the fact that, as you've mentioned, LinkedIn there and all these other different kind of social media platforms and things like that, it is all about networking and seeing, I may not be able to do this myself, but I know this person who can do it. And it is all about working as a team within your business, but also a team within the industry as well, and being able to help everyone out. And kind of that, I'm definitely heard of that that TED talk before about confidence, because I think when I was first applying for jobs, my mum had said, you've just got to do it. Don't overthink it. Don't put yourselves down. You're sure. And especially with the job description as well, I find that you can spin it, even if you may not necessarily done everything on it, you can always spin it off a little bit onto, right, I haven't done this, but here's X, Y, and Z, which I have done, which is very similar, or if not, is that. So what traits would you look for in potential candidates looking to join at Countryside?
I don't work at Countryside anymore. I've set up a consultancy.
Oh, sorry, yeah, there's Diva development. Sorry.
Planning.
So, so what would be kind of, so your top 3 traits that you would look for in a potential candidate?
I have to say that I surround myself with people who don't fit the mold. I worked for quite a lot of consultancies and companies where they had a specific type, and if you were that type, you'd progress.
Yeah.
So I like quirky people, confident people.
Yeah.
People who are a bit different. So I think if I was given 2 candidates and one of them, they were both, great, and one of them had a CV that was absolutely amazing, and they were, very, very qualified for the job, but the other candidate really wanted it, and I could see the hunger in their eyes and they had the passion.
Yeah.
I would give it to the person who had the passion and the hunger for it, because I think having somebody who is really engaged and wants to be part of something is for me more important than somebody who is just qualified, very highly qualified. So I think having the passion, I would find somebody who's really passionate about what I do at Diva Planning and the clients I work with at Diva Planning would be so I'd say passion, confidence, and ability to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
Quite often you find the planning sector or people in planning will think of things as a process.
Yeah.
That has to be followed, or we'll just stick to policy approaches or policy-led solutions when actually there is so much more that planning can do. So you need somebody who's going to look at solutions rather than just looking at what the policy says you can do, finding ways for your clients to achieve the outcomes they want, or finding opportunities for them they didn't know they had.
Yeah.
So I think somebody who thinks outside the box as well can show that kind of innovation.
Yeah. And thinking that one step ahead sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you kind of want to set up your own business?
It was quite a few things. I think there was a merger that happened at Vistry bought Countryside Countryside, and then Countryside merged with Vistry in London, and it became a very different beast. So it went from one London region to 4 London regions, and effectively my role as a board director for London was no longer relevant because I was sitting over the whole of London and there was 4 different regions. So my role effectively just wasn't there anymore. There wasn't any scope for it. So I left Vistry, and I had one of the potential joint venture partners I was going to work with on a project for Vistry had got in touch with me and said, I need some planning advice. It was all very timely. He said, why don't you come in and work with us for a few months? So I did, and I set up Diva Planning, and I'm continuing. It's probably a little, I wasn't quite expecting to find myself, but when life gives you lemons. So I've been working with an amazing client on some really exciting projects. And I found myself in a position of setting up my own consultancy. So it was a means to an end, but here I am.
Sometimes the best things come when you least expect it. So and now exactly, you've got your own company, you're your own boss. Must be the best. So kind of looking back in your career as a whole, is there anything that you would change at all, or?
I wish I had somebody like me in my career to say, you know that you don't have to do that. You know that they shouldn't speak to you that way. Which is what I find myself doing, or did find myself doing at various points, was like saying, maybe we shouldn't be speaking to people, or maybe we should be doing this, or maybe we should be, talking to our graduates about, how they think we should be working. Starting those kind of conversations. I wish that it was at a time, I started out at a time when you were expected to stay late. Presenteeism was very, very big. I wish I'd known it's not about how long you stay in the office, it's about the work that you do.
Exactly.
Not that I didn't work very hard, I did, but I just wish there was somebody there with my knowledge and experience now guiding me to say, actually, you can ask for more money. You can ask for more flexibility. You've worked over the weekend and you should be asking for some days off in lieu. I mean, everybody has to work a weekend now and then, especially in planning when you do a consultation. But I wish I'd had somebody to help me understand that I can ask for things. You can ask, and the worst they can help.
They could say yes, they could say no, but it's asking that question or saying, no, I'm sorry, I can't work, 10 weekends in a row, because it's, okay, you do need to have that passion and be motivated, and you do sometimes, as you say, need to put in those extra hours. But when it is kind of your whole entire life, there does need to be a certain point where you kind of have to stand up and say, this is a bit too much for me. And I guess it's kind of going back to confidence as well. Being able to have that confidence to say, or ask the question, say, yes, I do want a pay rise, that sort of thing. But then I guess kind of because you've experienced that throughout your career, that's shaped who you are today. So I guess probably, I don't know if you would kind of put it like this, in the fact that if you had had that support, then you may not be as so wanting to kind of help more people, if that makes sense.
That's it, exactly.
So it kind of swings it around. I always
find the underdog and advocate for them. It's like something I do.
See yourself in there.
I can, exactly. That's it.
But well, thank you very much, Sarah, for being on the podcast today. It was lovely to have you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the GSC Executives Podcast. Today's conversation was hosted and recorded by Caitlin Tye, with editing and production managed by Stephen Smith. The podcast is produced by GSC Executives in conjunction with Daniel Owen Limited. For more details about our executive search solutions, as well as upcoming episodes, please visit our website, gscexecutives.co.uk. If you're keen to hear more industry insights, please consider subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Until next time, continue to lead with excellence.